Oh, we. Yeah. It's Salad of the Young, and welcome back to the Troutstone era. This time I'll be talking about the Silver Club of the Crimson Collective. Oh boy, I had a good time writing this story, creating it, dealing with it, filtering faces for it. Everything is great with the Silver Club, so let's get into it. Year 1934 was when the Silver Club established themselves, as several other metalloid groupings began establishing too. Throughout time, the Silver Club has become the mightiest, mostly due to the 13 individuals that started them. Majority of them were couples. 7 of them were front runners. That became the main style of the club. Every generation, and sometimes preceding generations, will sprout one into the next generation. That is definitely the case in this generation. 5 of the guys belong to 4 preceding members that are still active and still practicing heroism with their partners. But in the current generation, there are 2 extras. Occasionally, members have been added after the 7 leads were established. The additions for this generation dealt with them being beyond beautiful. Not a lot to unpack there, but there's a lot to unpack in their history. As seen in the image, these are the current active members of the Silver Club. All 5 at the top come from different generations, and none of them belong to the origin group. All of the origin members have passed on to their next life. None of the upper 5 are related to any of the other currents. Toriko is the eldest acting member, then Geetie Geezhi, Nice Psycho, Sugar Slow, and then Colder. Toriko hails from Generation Soon, being at the huge old age of 3,811. Geetie Geezhi hails from Generation Bozad, being at the big old age of 3,139. Nice Psycho hails from Generation Asylum, being at the glorious age of 1,723. Sugar Slow hails from Generation Shrine, being at the lovely age of 1,363. And Colder hails from Generation Destructoid, being at the giant but young age of 1,223. There are other gaps between preceding generations, and a lot of them are still alive, just not acting members. Before I move along, fun fact, Geetie Geezhi wasn't an acting member until Zeophany and Querva met him. He figured the new generation would need more protection since 2 of the members are finally human. Yep, you heard me right. Wisp was what they were until the combo breaker known as Zeophany and Querva showed up. To show out, cause in all realness, they were ready to get in where they fit in, and their spots were with the Silver Club. And that was simply upon meeting them. Let's get into meeting them. The Silver Club has always, in a high-octane fashion, helped Arrow Ordnance Lords. They tend to be some of the bigger game handlers of Edgimaer. Think about it. A league of heroes that are guides and have been for many millennia. Now they have 2 humans. To explain how they got in the fold is a mystery. Until now. So open them ears wide and clear their mind up so you can understand the full situation. Cause it was hot garbage. Especially because they were 13 and finally had enough money to buy a ticket to Edgimaer without their parents knowing. They flipped coins and Querva won the right to choose where they will begin, while Zeophany would choose where they would end up. Since money talks and bullshit walks, they decided to bullshit their way across any region of Edgimaer in hopes of coming across any league of heroes so they can be a step closer to their dream gigs. Disregarding the fast lane life of being pop stars, they needed an outlet to use all of their parental given powers for good. It was all pure luck, as they walked through a portal to instantly end up at the interdimensional station of Viopsor Zekri. It's one of the places of Edgimaer. They were told that many caravans are leaving at a certain time, and had enough time to gather their wits and ask a caravan if they could go with them. This caravan had about 14 different factions in it, deciding to go together because of strength and numbers. Even though they weren't going through a dangerous route, the more people around, the better protected they are, and boredom will less likely ruin anything. As the girls got to the west side of Castle Zekri, they saw lots and just took their chances with walking around first. Then they saw the Silver Club, taking care of all of their Clydesdales and boisterously having a great time. They were all the way at the west gate. They would be leading the caravan, and they had a new generation to train. That's right. Generation 6 were welcoming all of their sons and the newbies of Generation Caliber. That day was their first day. Legacies, Silver, Leviathan, Hinox, Dexteros, and Quaros stood very tall with Exionchi and Brunzik, laughing, joking with grins from ear to nowheresville, cause they were cutting entirely up too much until Zeophany and Querva came into their peripherals. Before I all the way continue, keep in mind that Wisp are very friendly with humans and have even mated with humans, but there have never been humanoids coronated into their fold. It was never a thought, never in their imagination or the elders, but the girls said hey, and it instantly became a situation of whose muscles were the biggest. They already didn't have their torso mail on, and that alone was a facepalm to the mothers and Sinerva. But if you guessed right, Wisp don't operate on hormones. They're made of light, but the light that the two girls projected was enough to make the moons and any other important heads of Edgimaer see their potential from just looking at them. Zeophany just wanted adventures, but it was in a love at first sight that Querva and Silver experienced that would change the course of the Silver Club forever. Zeophany has been declining males her whole life, and if they didn't get the picture, her father would punch it into their eye sockets. But when Zeophany hit puberty, he didn't have to worry about that anymore. So if you ever hear Zeophany say nah, she's powering up slightly to provoke a scent to make a male unattracted to her sight. Been a free girl ever since. All the fun she will have, and Querva was enjoying that aspect too, cause being as famous as they already are, that's all the guys see. That's not what these 7 saw. The both of them come from semi-powerful lineage that really upped their game in the past 3 generations. They just happened to be all-star pretty to go with the might, and the might did nothing but make them prettier to those 7 boys. And no, Zeophany never folded for the other 6, but she let Querva have Silver in peace. Cause if you had what the bomb has, which is high-octane sensing capabilities, you would have been able to see the soulmate match in heaven energy that comes when 2 perfect people meet one another. All he could do was say, "Oh, crud." The moment something told him to turn his Clydesdale around was a second after those 2 locked eyes. Their nuclear energy reaction was bigger than the entire grounds of Castle Zekri. All the bomb saw was light. The brightest of that light was how Querva and Silver looked at each other. So he pulled his Clydesdale slowly over after a good few seconds of them interacting and the boys talking to Zeophany, but being gentlemanly enough to give her space, then looked at them as they completely ignored him. It was not what he needed before the training of Generation Caliber began. It also wasn't for the glory of the kingdoms. Truly it wasn't, cause he even knew how beautiful Querva's inner light was, and it stays fascinating. So if you ever wonder why certain gods and humans have a bomb-ass connection, it's because a human's light matches the Wisp light. There's so much light to marvel at, and they were marveling so hard, you would think they were about to change their name to Generation Marvelocity, cause light be moving fast, don't it? Yeah, ho. Then, somehow, some way, he eventually got his son's attention. The bomb was not pleased cause he, like all of the other adults, take training seriously because lives need to be saved for the world to remain thus beautiful. Besides, there's 13 other caravans and they're the protecting caravan. He had to find a way to get all of their attention back to the root of their definition. The Silver Club. For dreams of luxury, say a prayer. To safety on a silver high horse, you go. He told them to get their asses on their Clydesdale, but Zeophany and Querva wasn't done talking to them. Besides, they still haven't asked if they could get in on the caravan, so they took that opportunity. Then, without skipping any mediations, all of Generation 6 said, "Huh?" They pulled their Clydesdales over to surround the 2 girls while pushing the boys out of the way to ask them hella questions along the lines of, "You 2 really want to go into the wild of Edgimaer? Isn't this your first time here? What are y'all looking for? What do y'all plan on going? Do you know how fragile you are as a 13-year-old in this world?" The girls eventually had to interrupt them to tell them that they mean well and they just want to learn how to be strong superheroes for our future's sake. The bomb's interfacial expression was a straight face of disbelief as the other parents laughed their asses off, then realized that they were being serious. That whole time, not one of them scanned the girls to see how powerful they were. They did scan for their ages, then had to scan their financial status. All that money they had already, but when they powered up and they felt level 5s and 13-year-olds, being as pretty as they were at that time, them adults went into mental deliberations while the boys came to get the girls from the circle that surrounded them. A joke about how big can a Clydesdale truly get? Wrung the air, had them all laughing, but then the boys started questioning them, to being surprised by them. A pollution wielder with a steady heartbeat and a magma Pegasus wielder with a steady heartbeat. They asked the girls why do they feel so protected. Querva answered with, "Now, y'all know a vulture would never let anything happen within her castle walls." Without skipping any more immediations, all of the fellas stepped back while putting their hands on their waist and started nodding their heads because that was a smart-ass answer. Then started laughing because Silver broadcasted to the whole club that they are coming with them, but the bomb had something to say about it, and so did the others. Didn't go that way though, cause Silver nipped that shit in the butt by simply saying, "With me working my way to a captain's position, whatever I say goes. Not a question. They are coming with us. If they are who they think they are, they can protect themselves. Now, who's ready for that long journey to Dykevin's capital?" Everyone telepathically raised their hands, then he turned to Zeophany and Querva to let them know they can accompany them. Summoned 2 more Clydesdales, and as he guessed, their intellect is far-reaching, hopped on those Clydesdales as if it wasn't nothing and began marching with the Silver Club. That journey turned into a whole month. They were gone, just catching all kinds of information about Edgimaer on their first go-through. Lucky holes they were. Just putting in work and finding out how to deal with monsters in the fields. All kinds of things helped prove their worth because they were already in a super being surveillance program. And even that was against their parents' wishes, but like they said, we are the ones in front of the cameras making millions. We'll be back. Had to pause it and laugh real quick, but they didn't want to go back though, because the magic moving picture square jobs they had was nothing compared to directly saving lives. They get that from their fathers. They aren't superheroes, but they do put in super work. It was in how Querva got discovered in the first place. Because of Querva's overnight success at the age of 10, she bought Zeophany's life, and that made her success much more grand. Acting, modeling, hosting, and game showing had their bank accounts as powerful as they were, but they wanted to be more powerful than the money. Their first trip through Edgimaer made that feel like more of a reality. They had 2 very powerful, domineering, and captivating fathers that grew into very lovely super being surveillance occupations. Both are aerologists, but work in different fields. Dr. Noriega Cedino, prominent with the gadgets, more prominent with a superpowered fist to a dome. You've been warned. Specializes in making serums for all kinds of super beings with their plethora of powers. It was his intellect that gave Zeophany all of the immediate protection she would need to get through life. Cause who knows what men are capable of, like a father knows. That's right. He made no bad decisions on raising the little girl around love and might. Just like his father, but with a lot more power, he wanted to make sure that a single child grew up with everything he needed growing up. All of the research of his youth, the experimenting with successes, created a doctor that has instilled in other pollution wielders that they can be beyond oh my goodness. He created vials of pure peace, joy, love, empathy, and hope. Literally blue, yellow, red, green, and pink liquids he extracted from his emotional brain areas. A young rich man with the world as his oyster. Didn't do anything bad with it. Bided all his time during times of making sure he wasn't too famous. No one understood that because he had all the momentum to make his own superhero league, but it wasn't meant for him. What he wanted was to make sure the children who are in survival mode have a safe place to go, so they can learn how to love past their survival environments. He witnessed this world in a way that he knew other children weren't as lucky as him. Because of all of the different children he grew up with, to do something wonderful for the world was what he wanted. Because of his emotional serums, he was able to get a data on many kids he positively affected for the better. At the current day of New Year 8124, Dr. Sedino's serums have altered the life course of 20 million and 200,000 plus super beings. Dr. Lorenzo Menezes joined the Force Order of improving architecture so that super beings coming of age will not destroy the homes they may have grew up in. With his superpower being Magma Pegasus, he put together that he can use the Zenith edition of Pegasus to use the evaporation of superpowers with building materials. With him creating a scientific life to admire, he finally acquired the dream job at the Super Being Surveillance Program. Was able to get into superpower reactors to test his intelligence. The end result was him accomplishing his life goals and have been helping with the stable foundations of architecture on all planets. If it wasn't for his superpower combination, it wouldn't have been possible. He was able to put the hopes and dreams of super beings to reality, something no other aerologist has been able to accomplish because anti-super being material cannot reduce the awakening of superpowers in a 13-year-old. Side note, all super beings tend to skip school days on their 13th birthday to reduce damage to schools. And yes, the parents do notate what time the child came out the womb, so that they can get real close to the actual birth of the child leaving the chamber of life. Back to the story at hand. When Dr. Menezes finally had a daughter, he was worried because gynecologists had bad news for him. Multiple, you heard right, told him both him and his wife dropped the power gene. He was worried because his daughter may not have his superpower and he wanted her to have the same luxuries of having the ability of all elemental nullification. What all super beings know, that any Earth-based power will be announced as 2 thumbs up. Any air superpower is considered 2 thumbs up too. With the doubling of both, there's not a lot of room open to vulnerabilities. He wanted his daughter to have easy access to the untouching status if need be. Because if she comes out looking anything like her mother, her life would be difficult too. Yet, when his worries were over, they would come back when his daughter hit 10 years old, because she became an overnight sensation because of her star role on a new sitcom. That's exactly what the both of them were worried about for a month when they didn't hear from them. They knew they were safe because of their tabs around the world, but they luckily didn't walk back into their homes with their parents raging out on them. The fathers knew, when they said what they said about money, that there was no stopping them. They saw it in the programs all the time. Once the mighty elite get their first paycheck, they make the calculations on where they can go to get power, and their history begins right there. Knowing they can get around, they get the right information to join or create their own super leagues. They were surprised it was the coveted Silver Club, but was more surprised they got to go with them again. Then further surprised when they got all 7 of the current generation into motorcycling, then turned them all into motorcycling champions. Like any god can, they can master things quite quickly, but the girls asked them to all do it naturally, as if they wouldn't love crotch rockets as much as them. But their contracts wouldn't allow the girls to enter such a dangerous sport. Yes, they stumped and fussed about it, but at least their new comrades will have a stronger reason to include them on their epilogues. Basically meaning that Zeophany and Querva bought their lives too. The wonderful thing about the Silver Club dealt with how they always made the societies they visited their banks, then say it's all theirs. I mean, the food these people made impressions on those wisps from the moment they started in 1924. Now let's hear how all of these titans of mass creation and destruction got to where they are. Toriko, 3,811 years old, of Caribbean descent, hailing from Generation Soon, the 19th. Coining the phrase "soon will end it" meant that whenever they arrive, their beliefs in destroying evil is status quo. He grew up with his best friend, universal overhead lifts, just to make sure his shoulder-to-face game put men and women in infirmaries with their names on them. Probability of wisp and humanoid lift game against tons of weight began with him. He has inspired several heroes and even villains to get their lift game on galactic status. It was always in how his generation started bar fights just to get information, so they can turn a layer upside down the same way. One of his favorite things was flipping over catapults and any other instruments in war, then started taking matter projectiles like cannonballs from full launch speed to reversing them back across the battlefield. Physically. Heavy with the arms and momentum kept everyone around him safe. He hasn't left the fold for long. If anything, he'll take a year-long vacation but never pass 365. He's one of the main protectors of the current peace treaty of Edgimaer. All kings and queens respect every aspect of him. With access to everywhere he desires, he plans on keeping all of those relationships lovely. Superpower is astronomy. Geetie Geezhi, 3,139 years old, of Arabian descent, hailing from Generation Bozide, the 21st. Some consider him the ultimate gentleman. Others consider him the ultimate gentleman with too much power, always with the high amounts of respect, even when faced against ultimate villains. Being a wordist of life is his main goal. There is so much healing to be done, and hesitation is only involved against villain kind. Any other time, the two categories of life and Phoenix keeps his heal game supremely ultimate. Was known for sending in his generation with so much life force, to get rid of them involved slashing a planet in half. Good luck, cause all of that is backed up by water powers. If anyone were to fall during battlefield scenarios, it would mean a countdown. If no one is around, everything around will be submerged in poisonous water. Being a main protector of the current peace treaty looks very good on him, to the point he's a household name because he will even heal broken homes if given the chance. If it's any consolation, he is the most favorite member of the Silver Club, per the words of all of the kings and queens. Superpower is magistry. Categories are psychic, life, phoenix, and water. Side note, the current generation calls him Uncle Geetie, except for Zeophany and Querva. Night Cycle, 1,723 years old, of Nubian descent, hailing from Generation Asylum, the 25th. She gets her name from a lot of things, but mainly because she is one of the most active members, been involved with every single generation of the Silver Club since her debut. One of her favorite pastimes deals with reading the minds of all of villain kind because she wants to understand hate. The better you understand, the better you can deal with it. With knowledge being power, and she's a psychic, her hive mind is a favorite of the superhero guild. She'll put forth all information without any regards of anyone's comfort level. She learned a lesson about accuracy at a young age, with psychics forever being hunted because of the Utopia Protocol. Her ruthlessness comes from several abduction attempts. Realizing what kind of world she was brought into created this monster. Her slash game is everywhere, and that's just with one slash. For every action she performs, her psychic clones of 20 turns it into a 21-hit combo. To break her offense revolves understanding the mechanics of Ikaruga. Now watch your mouth and mind around her. Breaking and entering is the new black with her. Her superpower is Psychic Firefly. Sugar Slow, 1,363 years old, of Indian descent, hailing from Generation Shrine, the 27th. The secret is in her cookies, pulling all kinds of improbable energies to swirl around in every chip. One bite might save your life, but one bite will ensure you get a bonus of magical might. It's your intelligence that will decide if you survive or not. The kicker revolves around how her cookies help with that too. No time for inferiority. Only time for supremacy. So take the cookie like a champ to become a champ. Taking all kinds of pointers from that cheat book allowed for her to cook some timely measures. Being a time mage has a lot of fruits. Going back to the beginning of how they used to have feasts prepared for the Silver Club allowed her to take in a lot of wholesome essence. That kind of energy pool is beyond mighty. That's an ode to how many kisses she's blown to battlefields she has conquered. Her superpower is magistry. Categories are cookies, meteor, ray, and time. Colder, 1,223 years old, of Colombian descent, hailing from Generation Destructoid, the 28th. As noble as a griffin's appearance, he believes in nothing but honorable fights. He describes them as using all of your magical might, in essence of being colder than his last onslaughts. He is always trying to outdo himself. Comparing himself to other warriors is non-existent. Abyss powers are so strong, one ice orb from him can bring on cold fronts in a 50-mile radius. Should have named him Control, because that's how thorough he is with just one projectile. So dress appropriately if you want to go against the thrones. One of his favorite pastimes revolves around being a one-man army. Will literally guide his Clydesdale into a battlefield, armed with just his barbarian whipping sword and his griffin wings already out. It's an omen for villain kind. His superpower is Ice Griffin. Generation Sick, 300 years old or up. The Bomb. He's Silver's fodder. Superpower is Silver's psychic. Sinerva. Her superpower is electricity. Rugler. The fodder of Dexterose and Quarrose. Superpower is magistry. Categories are fair, earth, sword, and sound. Raishava. The mother of Hynox. Superpower is unicorn of fire. Snowsir. Superpower is icicle mold. Rekev. Superpower is rhino weather. In Dreamcore, the mother of Leviathan. Superpower is Hydro Cow. Generation Sick tended to the battlefields professionally for 250 plus years before preparing for the next generation. 4 parents-to-be decided to procreate around the same time. All of their sons oddly were born in the same month. The Bomb was the captain of this generation, and Snowsir was second in command. Dealt with a lot of world-altering events and kept the Silver Club at the top of the army food chain. Like the very first generation of the Silver Club, all contenders are crowd controllers and can wipe out armies in a straight line while being 50 feet away from one another. Their strategies for onslaughts change depending on whatever terrain, but for the most part, it's in the order of how I listed them in this section. The Bomb, Sinerva, and Rugler are teleporters. They can collect Raishava, Snowsir, and Rekev if a nasty surprise attack is going to look like it will wipe out a giant portion of the battlefield. Dreamcore can teleport too, but her powers have hypnotizing effects that can ward off anyone chasing the teleporting energies. They will usually escape in the direction of going towards Dreamcore. If there is no surprise attack or reinforcements coming through, the 7 of them will make mincemeat out of 350 feet in a straight line until the battle is over. The Silver Club is always on the front line of all battles. They are never used for reinforcements. They have this thing called punctuality, and they respect it more than anything else, because the time to stop villain behavior is now, and they are always on time, so they don't have to get on time. Lastly, I will detail why they have their code names. The Bomb is known for taking bombs with giant radii of destruction to the center of battles and teleporting out of harm's way, always at the right time. Sinerva is known for using her electricity powers to mesh with other powers, whether it's her club, natural, or from enemies. Has the intellect to take any kind of element and use it as if she was born with that power. Rugler is known for being the handler of roughheads. If they are advised to not use their normal strategy, Rugler will either take the lead alone or bring anyone else with him that fits the current war strategies. Raishava is known for exotically burning everything in her path. Snowsir is known for bringing hazardous snowstorms to battles. Rekev is known for making paths in any war situation. And Dreamcore is known for upping morale across entire battlefields. Hypnotism is the same grade as Avosia's. Generation Caliber, all 13 years old. Silver, superpower is Silver Psychic. Querva, superpower is Magma Pegasus. Zeophany, superpower is Pollution. Dexterose and Quarrose, superpowers are Magistry. Dexterose categories are Manipulation, Speed, Titanus, and Sword. Quarrose categories are Crystallization, Ray, Hands, and Sword. Hands would be like summoning Grok's hands, which are like big hand monsters like the Master Hand and the Crazy Hand on Super Smash Bros. Leviathan, superpower is Hydro Minotaur. Hynox, superpower is Clydesdale of Fire. Exeon Chi, superpower is Shadow. And Bronzegg, superpower is Titanus. In 8124, they are all 35 years of age or will turn 35. All born within a year's worth of time from one another. Silver, Dexterose, Quaros, Leviathan, and Hynox were raised together essentially for the purpose of the next generation. Generation Caliber has the most number of legacies in a generation. Geonchi and Brunswick were found in the Raedris Queendom. Both are from the same region and come from families that believe in the power that Masterpiece has bestowed onto her nation. They were chosen mostly because of their powers, for the sanctity of teleporting everyone out of an end-all attack of a battlefield. Silver, Dexterose, Quaros, Geonchi, and Brunswick are the teleporters of this generation. Unlike the preceding generation, they like to switch up their lineup so everyone can have a chance at making sure they see battles from all viewpoints on the ground. With Zeophany and Querva in the mix, they offer up another fire wielder and another support healer wielder. They always enter the battlefield behind positions 3 and 5. Always. Even if 2 fire wielders are in the lineup at the same spot. Always. In perspective of when they are at optimal output of destruction, the formation is Silver, Quaros, Hynox, Brunswick, Geonchi, Dexterose, and Leviathan. Querva will be behind Hynox, and Zeophany will be behind Geonchi. The Silver Club practices majority of their heroism in Edgimaer. The likelihood of spotting them in the real world is surprisingly low, even with the fellas being motorcycle racing all-stars. Because of their oath to protecting all 10 thrones of Edgimaer, their positions with keeping their lineups, as all Wisp, is just. Zeophany and Querva understands this but loves it, because they will work tirelessly to make bomb-ass entertainment in the real world, then work tirelessly to protect the queendoms and kingdoms. The 2 humans have a lot of Edgimaer to witness, a whole lot, because their planet is 2.3 times larger than Jupiter. Now think about this. Querva and Silver are still in love and are deemed a serious couple. They still suffered some scrutiny, but it was in the capacity of when Querva dies naturally. What's next? Silver still hasn't answered this question, but he's hoping to turn her into a goddess. The bigger question is, to turn her into a wisp or not. Being a human is all she knows. It's possible to transform a vessel into another species. He can even turn back. But that requires a lot of power for just one of those. Silver has his parents to look up to, but what would happen when Querva is ready to procreate? What would happen to Zeophany? Do they even think about this? There are a lot of odds and evens to deal with when it comes down to such a subject. The girls have witnessed forever. It looks strong on the Silver Club, and they know that even the moons adore them. Until they reach the day they are asked to become goddesses, they will uphold the mantra of the Silver Club. It's happened plenty of times, but there have been plenty of declines. This world has a lot of ways to live, but one thing humans know, their little 100 years is a long time. Becoming accustomed to death is natural. Wanting to live out a full life is natural. Knowing that gods exist is natural. It just depends on a sole person's decision on where they will go at the end of their line. And that is the Silver Club. Hope you enjoyed the story. I'm out until the next one. Mwah.